So with that, let's continue with interpretation of data. I think that would have definitely made the point of why statistics is important to be studied when we are talking about machine. Right? That should not be a question in anyone's mind key why we are spending one lecture completely on statistics. Alright? Moving ahead, now we are talking about interpretation of data. So then we talk about interpreting data is important. That is why we collected the data. Now we'll talk about how to interpret it. So the first thing is interpretation of data can be through several tools and similar to bar charts that we just see. Alright, there are several statistical tools using which we can interpret the data. Although we'll be not discussing all the tools, all the different mechanisms that can be used to interpret data, that can be used to understand the derive inference from the population, but we'll be looking at some of them to give you an idea. Okay, but again, which tool to use in a given particular case depends upon data attributes and what we are doing. Alright, so that is very very important. We'll see some examples why that is important. So the first and most important aspect of any data is its dimensionality. So what is dimensionality? Dimension. It comes more from the geometrical aspects of data representation. That whether the data that you have collected can be plotted on just one axis or it would require more than one axis. If it can be plotted on just one axis, it will be one dimensional data. If it will require two axes to plot the data, it will be two dimensional data. And if more dimensions are required, it will be multi-dimensional data or three dimensional, four dimensional, and dimensional data, as depending upon the attributes of it. So what that means is, let's say, if in your case of survey, if you would have collected only the heights of students in a class, then what we can do, we can create a line chart. Sorry, not exactly line chart, but we can plot that on just one line. Let me explain this to you. So I can draw a line here. On this line, we will be having somewhere we will be having zero. And from that zero onwards, we can plot the heights of all the students. So let's say somewhere around here we have maybe 160. Alright. So most of the students will be lying around there, some on to the left of 160, some on to the right of 160. So on this one specific line itself only, we can plot the complete. We can represent the complete data. And such data sets can be called to be one dimensional. Alright, and let's say if you have another parameter called age, maybe, then you will need another axis for age. And then maybe let's say here it is 16, then there will be some values on this scale here. But it is completely okay until unless you have these data sets separately with you. So if this is data set 1, D1, then it can be plotted on one line. If you have this another data set D2, that can be plotted on another line. But let's say if you have a data set that has both these columns, in that case, the points will go somewhere around here. And each of these points will be one sample in your workbook. Alright, and that is why we call it two-dimensional data, and similarly, there could be higher dimension of data. So that is just to explain what the one-dimensional data is. Right now, you can understand it in another way. So let's say if you can store the data that you have recorded in an array from a programming perspective, you can store your data in a single dimensional array. That is a one-dimensional data, and if you will require multi-dimensional arrays or structures or classes to store your data, or array of structures or array of classes, definitely, then that will be multi-dimensional. Okay. So when we are trying to study one-dimensional data, these are some statistical measures that we generally use. So first is mean. All of you know what mean is. Mean is average of all the values on that particular scale. on that particular axis. So what does mean tell us? Mean tells us location of data on the base axis. So let's say if this is the complete axis, what mean will tell is, let's say if we try to find out the mean of this particular data set, so if we'll try to find the mean of this particular data set, we'll get the mean at somewhere over here. And what then mean is telling us that on this complete axis, this axis may start from anywhere and go up to anywhere. On this axis, this is where our data lies. This is where you can look for the data. So that is what mean does. It tells you about the location of data. Next, we see standard deviation. And what is standard deviation? It is nothing but the difference of each data sample or each data point with the mean of that particular population. Alright, and we take a square of it, we divide by the total number of samples, and we take again a square root of that, and that is our standard deviation. That is how we calculate it. But visually, what standard deviation tells you, standard deviation gives you a measure of the spread of this data, that how widespread the data is on this axis. So given the mean and given the standard deviation, you can exactly pinpoint where the data is. They are trying to somehow give you an insight into what your data is on this complete axis. So let's say if we are talking about the axis of heights, the heights could range for any human being. The heights could range from, let's say, a few tens of centimeters. Let's say 50, 60 centimeter for a newborn child, maybe, and then it could go up to, let's say, 200 centimeters or 240 centimeters for some rare humans. So on this complete scale of heights, if we have been given two values, mean and standard deviation, what we could tell is that what is the range of people that have been included, or where on this particular axis are data. So that is not a very useful insight, or is it? So can any one of you give an example where we can use mean and standard deviation to derive some inference from the data? Any example? Any?
For example, in clothing industry, we can tell that where do most of the people like lie in the terms of size, and do we need to create shoes of wider range of sizes.
Very great. Very. So definitely, there could be several such examples. All right. So within the complete range of it may look like irrelevant, but think of it in terms of, let's say, if you have an e-commerce website and you get a lot of apparel related orders on that website, and you want to see that most of the people who are buying like clothes from us, what are their size. Let's say most of them belong to the M size, most of them belongs to L size or whatsoever, and depending upon that, you may want to increase the production of M sized garments, or you could reduce the production of L sized garments, and so on. So decisions could be taken based on that as well. So definitely, to some extent, these most basic measures of tendency could also act like an intel or inference from the given data. So similar to standard deviation, we have variance. Variance is nothing but the square of standard deviation. And why do we care about variance more is, particularly when we are talking about computing these parameters, variance is easier to compute because you do not have to take the square root after calculating this term. Alright, when we are computing these numbers, what we'll have to do to find out the standard deviation, we'll have to take a square root of this figure. Alright, but whereas in case of variance, we do not have to do that. That means it is a one lesser operation. Alright, and irrespective of whether we take this root or not, it will always give you a relative insight into the spread of the data. All right. So this does not. There is this little confusion with most of the students. Is that when you say standard deviation, it will be, let's say, from this xi to, let's say, this xj. No, that is not true. Alright, so as standard deviation is not xj minus xi. What standard deviation gives you is like some small distance from here to here, whose multiples will define that how much of the data gets covered into that distance. So let's say if your standard deviation is in this case, let's say k, then what you can claim is that most of my data lies within k uh, n1k. So this is mean minus n1. Okay, this is like any random sample that we are talking about. So most of my data will be lying within this range, and that is the promise we can make. So here k is your standard deviation, m is your mean, and here this n1 and n2 would be the same figure or the two different figures depending upon the type of inference you want to produce. In most cases, we want to take them as the same value, and this is the guarantee that standard deviation provides you. That given in any arbitrary integer, at some steps, some k steps, or some standard deviation steps away from mean, that is where all the data lies. And that is what standard deviation means. It is not an absolute value, rather, it is a relative value. So, then how it is useful? Let's say if there are two different data sets. We draw a diagram here. Let's say if there are two different data sets, one on this axis, one on this another axis, and let's say on for this data set D1, the data is spread somewhere like this. This is the spread of data set for D1, whereas for let's say D2, the spread is like this one. So in this case, the standard deviation will be higher than the standard deviation of T2. So that is how we get a relative measure of the spread of the data. That is how we can use this standard deviation to measure the spread of data. But irrespective of that, this is the guarantee that standard deviation gives. Right? This is what standard deviation promises us. That within a few steps measured by the standard deviation of our data, all of the data within that data set will have that relation. Alright, and since variance is nothing but a squared standard deviation, it again can provide us the same inference. Because anyway, we were not getting absolute value. Okay. Right now, like this may seem to be a lot confusing or complicated to understand at first, but the major concept that needs to be taken away from here is that standard deviation gives us an idea about the spread of the data set. Okay, the value doesn't matter. Whatever the value is, that doesn't matter. So, given two different data sets, for let's say if this is the data set of same heights, but when you have captured it, let's say in fourth class, class 4. All right, and this D1 is again the data set of heights from let's say 11th class, class 11. Then, given the standard deviation of these two data sets, you can always guarantee that if the spread of data is more in D1, the standard deviation for D1 will be more than standard deviation of. Only that is always true, and because we are more interested into getting an idea of the spread rather than the actual spread of the data, we can drop this square root operation and stick to using variance for understanding our data. Alright. Moreover, later when we'll go ahead and study machine learning algorithms, we'll take up some problems to understand that why variance doesn't make any difference as compared to standard deviation. But as of now, just take it as a word from me that to make computing easy, we use variance instead of standard deviation. Okay. The next measure that we use to study data is median. All of you have heard this term, median. What is median? It is that element which is halfway through a sorted list of given data items. Okay, so let's say you have like a data like this. All of you can see this data sequence here. So given a data sequence like this, you will sort them from smaller to larger, and then the data element which is at the right center of it. So if we can count this 21, then in that case the element number 11, I guess, somewhere around here. I am not going to count again. So I'll say that median of this population is 8. So that is what median is. What median is used for? There is one problem with mean, and what is that problem? Let's say you have went to a government school, a public school, and you are gathering heights of students. Okay, and let's say this is on some scale. This is, let's say, 120 centimeters, and this is, let's say, up to 200 centimeters. So what would happen is that you get a data somewhat like this. So there is lot of entries around there, and there are a few entries over here. How could this be the case? Let's say there are some elderly age students over there. In public schools, in villages, you can find many of the elderly students who are studying with the normal age students. Let's say for a class 8, you can find many people in the age group of 8 to 9 or 10, but there are some who couldn't clear their education or clear the exams earlier, and now they want to do it in their 20s. Okay, so because of that, you may get a data like this. So the problem with the mean is that if you will try to find the mean of this particular data segment, you will get the value somewhere around here. Not even just there. You will find somewhere around here. Why? Because outliers impact the calculation of mean very much. So we call such data samples to as outliers. They are outliers. They do not, sorry, they do not agree or look similar to the rest of the population. Okay, so problem with mean is that it cannot handle outliers very well. But in case of median, what would happen? So let's say in this same data again, what would happen is that median would be somewhere around here. Why? Because median will count all these elements, and irrespective of their values, it will always select the element which is halfway through this complete list. Alright, and that is why median is important when for some data sets. So what is median used for? It is used for identifying if there are any outliers in our data. Median can help us find that. How? Let's say if mean and median in your data sets are very close, that would mean that you have a very good data without many of the outliers. Alright, but if your mean and median are very far away, that would mean that there are several outliers in your data. Okay, we'll talk more about outliers and difference between mean and median in a few minutes. But right now, just try to understand this, that median can be used to identify outliers in the given data set. It becomes very important when we are talking about pattern recognition. We'll get to learn this later. We also have to devise strategies to find out such outliers and remove them in the data pre-processing step, so as to they do not create an impact on our algorithms who are trying to learn some pattern out of the given data. Alright, this is very important. We'll look about outliers later. But as of now, just remember this fact. Now next comes as percentile. How many of you know what percentile is? Heard this term percentile?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So it can be defined as number of values given below a particular element x. So let's say in this particular series, let's say if you want to find out what are the percentile of 10. So irrespective of their magnitude, their value, whatsoever, if you want to find out percentile of 10, how will we find out it? How will we calculate it? It is number of values below x divided by total number of values multiplied by 100. So what percentile provides us? It provides relative positioning within the data. So irrespective of the original scale. So let's say our original scale was like this. Let's say we are trying to collect marks of students in a particular test, and those marks we have plotted on this particular scale. Okay, so what would happen, that some of the students would be having very low marks, some of the students will be having very high marks, and most of the students will lie somewhere around in between of this scale. Is that true? Like for most of the cases it is true, but let's say if the examiner sets a tougher paper, you got a very tough paper in any particular exam, what would happen in that case?
Marks would shift to a lower range.
Okay. Yes, then we will have some entries very close to zero, and then there will be some averages around here, but still there will be some very good students who will like ruin it for everyone else in the class, and they will score very high. That happens sometimes. And let's say examiner sets an easy paper. What would happen in that case? The toppers will score very high, then the average will be slightly on the upper side, and still then there will be some dumb students who cannot take the use of that opportunity and will still score less. So what percentile helps us in identifying is, let's say in this case, if we rely on scoring the students on percentage basis, what would happen, that let's say if this particular student here, in this case, let's say it scores 60%. All right. It had put in the same amount of efforts, but it scored 60%. In this case, since the paper was tough, with the same amount of efforts, now it is scoring only 40%. All right. But since the paper was easier in a particular exam, with the same amount of efforts, it is scoring 80%. So with the same amount of effort, this student gets to be positioned at different levels on this scale. So to normalize that, let's say to ensure that for let's say tougher papers or for the lesser paper, so easier papers, that should not influence the marks of students too much. What we would do, we would replace this percentage system with percentile system. All right. So what would happen? In this case, let's say the student on this complete scale, it lies somewhere around 60%. All right, that is fine. But in this case, on this complete scale, although the marks he got are 40% of this complete scale. So if this is the 100%, he has a 40% marks. All right, but let me just erase it. But now, let's say when we are talking about percentile, that would not be the case with the student. And let's say it will again score somewhere around 55%. Because now his marks are not based on the absolute value of score he got in that particular paper. Rather, it will be dependent upon relative positioning of his marks on this complete scale. Alright, so if more number of students are on the lesser side of this scale, this axis, all of them would score slightly higher. So let's say this student who earlier got 20% only, but when we normalize this on a percentile scale, what would happen? Again, it may have the same marks, But now his scores will be normalized to a higher figure, let's say 32% or whatsoever. So just to give you an example. Why? Because now we are marking them on a relative scale, depending upon their positioning within this complete sorted list of data. So based on this inference, given any data set, how do you find that percentile is useful or you or not? Can anybody tell that?
So when select some like students, few students.
Couldn't understand. Please come again.
So when we have to select a few students,
You have to select
competitors.
based on maybe their efforts, right? Maybe we want to find out like students who are outliers in our data. Outliers we can always identify, not me. I'll not answer that question right now. We'll study the next concept and then we'll answer. So after percentile, we'll talk about quartiles. So what quartiles are? Quartiles divide our complete access or the complete scale, not exactly the complete scale, the complete data set, the complete population into four parts. So this is here the data element with the let's say minimum value, and here we'll have data element with the maximum value. I can write that MNNX. So that complete data set is now been divided, complete population is now been divided into four parts. The first part will have values which will lie below 25 percentile. Alright. So now what it guarantees is that this particular quartile, this particular section will contain somewhere around 25% of the elements in our population, irrespective of what their value is. Do you agree with that? Do you understand what I said just said? So let's say if I create a scale where the minimum is represented by that data element which has the minimum value of the parameter to be studied, and the maximum on that scale is the maximum value of data element for the given parameter that we are studying, and then we divide this scale into four equal parts. Okay, but the basis of this division is percentile rather than percentage. So this is percentile. It is written as percentage, but this is not percentage on the basis of percentile. In that case, what will happen is that now we have a guarantee that given all different types of cases, so there could be any case of an average paper, of a tough paper, of an easy paper, what we would say that in this particular quartile or in this particular section, we will have at least 25% of the students. Here we will have another 25% which will be having slightly higher marks than this first quartile. Then there will be this third section and then fourth section. So this is a way of dividing the population into four parts, depending upon their relative positioning on the given values. Alright, what would this mean? That let's say if there is a scale like this was the problem that we were discussing, that most of the children are here and then there are some outliers. And the problem with this kind of data was that mean will be somewhere around this, and thus mean becomes irrelevant for such data. But let's say if I divide this data set intelligently into four parts, where let's say some of them will be here, some of them will be here, some of them will be here and some from here, and these, they all will be here. So in this case, now we have a scale that is slightly less susceptible to outliers, or slightly less affected by the outliers. It is not that much affected by these outliers as this scale. And from this scale, what we can do, we can now calculate standard deviation, which is not exactly standard deviation, we call it interquartile range. But this is the value that tries to give you the spread of data when there are outliers. How it does that? This is the formula for interquartile range. What it gives? A set of x from where the percentile is 75%, below 75%, minus the set of x below 25%, and that range we take up as our interquartile range. So what that exactly is? So let's say we divided our data onto this scale, and now we are taking up this range from here to here. And what would this mean? That most of the outliers, whether they were on the maximum side or whether they were on the minimum side, we have ignored them. We are only considering these two quartiles here. And this range now we will use to understand the spread of it. Okay, so that makes us less affected or less susceptible or less intervened by the outliers. And this would give you a better measure for the spread of data than standard deviation. Is that clear? Anybody has any doubt in this, please say. So I'll explain again. I'll give 1 minute to digest what I just said. Okay, and then we'll continue. Just think about it for a minute and then we'll continue. Okay, so any questions? I think it is very clear. Most of you have understood the concept here. So now what we have with this complete discussion, what we arrived to, that if there are no outliers in our data, we can use mean and standard deviation to represent the data. However, when outliers are there, mean and standard deviation is not a good parameter. Again, why the standard deviation is not a good parameter? Because given such a data set, the standard deviation will be this large. However, that is false because most of the data lies over here only. Okay, so standard deviation also fails to give you a good measure given there are some outliers. So when there are outliers, the mean and standard deviation are not very good parameters to look for or to represent the data in terms of. Alright. In such cases, what we do, we use median and quartile range to understand our data or to interpret our data. Alright. So that is what we want to conclude with this. Coming to next.
So,
Yes.
so wouldn't we miss out on 50% of the data just take interquartile, and that would cause wrong inferences somehow?
Understood. So what you are trying to say is, let's say for a given data set, there are not many outliers. Alright. What would that mean? That there is nothing much in this quartile and this quartile. Most of the data, we are considering that most of the data lies within these two quartiles. Alright. But that is the thing that we'll use this interquartile range to interpret our data only in the case where our median and mean are very far away. And we are very sure that there are some outliers which are making the mean useless for this particular data.
Okay, sir.
And there is always a possibility whenever we like try to write an algorithm to understand data, there's always a possibility that there will come some kind of a data set that will not work well with our algorithm. All right, and that is why we need better measures to understand our data. We cannot completely rely on mean, standard deviation, median, or interquartile range to understand the data. We need better mechanisms, and that is the reason for that. All right, but as of now, try to understand that this is like our nearest shot at trying to understand our data. Okay.